Brian Wilson, Mary Catherine Ham, Brian Neiman, today's newsmakers, and you, the Morning Majority.
105.9 FM, WMAL.
7:37 on the Morning Majority. Getting to talk to KT McFarland, Fox News national security analyst and host of FoxNews.com's DEF CON 3 show. That's Wednesdays at 2. You can watch that. How's it going, KT? KT?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, there you are. Well, let me start with Keystone. The rejection of Keystone, we've been talking about it a lot as an economic issue. Is it a national security issue also?
Oh, for sure, and it's a total disaster. Here's the thing. What have we fought over the world for the last 100 years? Energy. Energy has determined world politics for the last 100 years. The countries that have had cheap and easy energy, Britain in the 19th century with coal, the Saudi Arabia and the Middle East oil-producing countries in the 20th century with oil, they've become wealthy beyond imagining. And the countries that didn't have energy, like Japan in World War II, they've been willing to fight for it. Or us in the last 15 years of wars in the Middle East. It's to secure access to energy. So what's the next future going to hold for us? What's the 21st century? Again, it's all going to be about oil and energy. And guess what? It's our turn. We've got the stuff. The Canadians and the United States. We've developed technologies in the last few years to look deep underground for energy. And we found that we're swimming in oil and natural gas. We've also developed the technology to get it out of the ground at competitive prices. But what's standing in the way of that? Well, frankly, the administration. President Obama has just canceled this pipeline deal where the Canadians have cheap oil. They want to sell it to us. It's a secure and cheap energy source, and the president said no thanks. The other thing he's done is he won't let the energy industries in the United States on federal lands go ahead and explore and exploit and extract energy. So in both ways, he's really dooming America's future. Are you still there?
We are. Brian's in Florida. I thought Brian was going to chime in, but we will. I'll pick it up on this question about what's going on in Syria, because there was James Clapper, the director of national intelligence, said something the other day. Said it was inevitable that Bashar Assad would have to leave, although he didn't give a timetable, which is something probably my 6-year-old could come up with. That one day Bashar Assad is going to have to leave and will no longer be in power because either he's dead or somebody takes over.
Exactly.
So, did you make anything out of those assessments?
Here's what I made out of this. Clapper has an absolutely perfect record. He is always wrong.
Right. So,
look, Assad is determined. He's looked around. He's seen the lay of the land in the Middle East. He knows it's kill or be killed. And he's going to stick around until he gets killed. And that's that simple. Now, why is he able to stick around? Because the Iranians support him, and the Russians don't want to do him in, and the West, i.e. the United States, NATO, doesn't have either the ability or the stomach for another war.
But is there a timetable in your mind of when that might be? I mean, is it right around the corner? Is it, or is he have the ability to stay around for years?
No, I think he probably has the ability to stay around for years. But why? Because the root of the problem isn't Assad. The root of the problem is Iran. And unless you deal with Iran, you can't deal with Assad. The root of the problem in the Palestinian-Israeli situation is Iran. And until you get, I think, regime change in Iran, you don't make progress in anything else. Now, how would you do a regime change? I'm a Reagan person. Okay, I don't believe in Bush-style regime change, which is we send in our military and change a regime. I don't believe in Obama-style regime change, which is we lead from behind with another group and go in and change somebody's regime. Because then who knows what regime you get next. I believe in Reagan-style regime change, which is the people of that country do it themselves. And how do we help them along with that? By applying such enormous economic pressure on a country, on the leadership of that country, that leadership is so busy trying to keep their heads that they don't have time to do things like the Iranian nuclear program. Spend money for Hamas, Hezbollah, or the thugocracy in Syria.
Well, speaking of the Iranian nuclear program, there are two things I note of late. One is that the Israeli leader of Mossad has been in this country recently giving some background briefings on the situation, and I'm detecting that the Israelis are sort of backing down a little bit on talk that they might do something militarily inside Iran.
Well, I do think that the new sanctions that have been imposed are significant and crippling if the administration imposes them ruthlessly and rapidly, which there's a question whether they'll do that. But those sanctions may, in fact, work while others in the past have not, because, in effect, they put a blockade around Iranian oil, but using banks. And what that blockade means is Iran doesn't have access to what is 80% of their GNP, oil sales. So maybe there's an opportunity to see if sanctions work before you take the inevitable choice of bombing Iran or letting Iran get the bomb. But I've got to point out, there's one thing that just has struck me in the last week, that is President Obama is now cutting the military, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cut 100,000 troops out of the Army and the Marines. But what has he done at the same time? He's hired 145,000 bureaucrats. Uh-huh. So we're trading 1.5 good old bureaucrats in exchange for one battle-hardened soldier. I just think it really, for a president who claims his great foreign policy victories, a president who knows he's going to be facing crises in Iran and in the Pacific and around the world, to somehow cut the military and tell everybody you're going to do more with less, you do less with less. And what is the example of the proof of that? Because he's hiring so many bureaucrats.
To do what?
Yeah, well.
Yeah. All right, listen, there's somebody close around here. Jay Rockefeller, the senator from West Virginia, is asking for comprehensive cybersecurity legislation. Anytime I hear the word comprehensive, I get a little apprehensive about that. But I thought, I don't know what he wants out of this. I thought we had, through the NSA, a cyber command center. What exactly does he want out of this?
You're wrong, and you're vulnerable.
Okay, we're all vulnerable. If we don't have this, is this something we need?
The cyber command we set up is great, because it's going to protect the military, it's going to protect the United States government and all those bureaucrats, and it's going to protect the defense industry. Who's it not going to protect? You. Because why? Because America's so dependent. Our entire economic infrastructure is so dependent on the internet and emails and the cloud and cyber, but that's not what's protected. Think about it. You draw money out of your ATM machine, right?
Sure.
In a cyber war, there's going to be no banking record.
Right. You wake up one day, you have zeros in your bank account.
There's nothing. I mean, you're back in the 18th century at best, because there's no electricity, because they could target the electric grid. There's no banking system because they can target that. That's what's not protected, and I think that's what Senator Rockefeller is referring to. We're America the vulnerable.
So it would be more to protect banks and protect other private sector companies than it would be to do like the power grids and nuclear power plants, which are
it would be to do all
protected?
Of that. They're not already protected. You mean the electric grid? You think that's protected?
Well, I assume that cyber command would be looking at those things.
I think you ought to sell your SUV and buy a bicycle.
All right. Yes, I probably
actually get a good pair of sneakers. You're going to be doing a lot of walking.
My canned goods and my gun. Get that ready. All right, KT. Good to have you on as always. Appreciate it.